Ascent Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Vertical Growth: How Self-Awareness Transforms Leaders and Organizations, by Michael Bunting with Carl Lemieux. Narrated by Jonathan Cowley. Publisher's note: in this audio edition, you will hear references to figures and tables present in the print and e-book formats of the book. Introduction. The vertical growth imperative. The snake that cannot shed its skin must perish. Friedrich Nietzsche. Sheila Frame, president of the Americas for the pharmaceutical company Amrit Pharma, shared with me her past experience of workdays spent putting out one fire after another. There were times when she struggled with proactively setting an agenda and creating a plan for her team. And when her team members didn't really know what was expected of them, she would step in and solve problems for them. She became aware of this self-defeating pattern and what was creating it only when she went through a vertical growth training program. As she explained to me, I started to realize that my resistance to planning, goal setting, and proactivity came from my wanting to keep my options open, because I like to be in the action. I'm a master at managing a crisis. It's an adrenaline rush for me, and I love it. So why would I be more proactive when it would cut off my opportunity to be in the center of all the action? Until Sheila experienced this moment of self-awareness, goal-setting or proactive planning skills were of little value to her. She would simply revert to her default behavior pattern. She was driven by her unconscious need for the short-term gratification of managing crises, which took precedence over her aspiration to create a more strategic focus in her team. Sheila first needed to see this pattern to realize how she was contributing to the team dysfunction. This is what self-awareness and vertical growth are all about, and why they are far more important for long-term leadership success than leadership theories, tools, and techniques. Instead of reacting to challenges and opportunities based on our programmed algorithms, we develop enough awareness to recognize our algorithms in action and question their value. Self-aware people who, like Sheila, embrace a vertical growth mindset see themselves as a continual work in progress and become progressively less afraid to look at themselves honestly. Through the process of developing self-awareness, they begin to realize that their dysfunctional patterns of behavior have nothing to do with their self-worth. This realization is a pivotal growth moment. They understand that all human beings, even the best of us, have conditioned patterns of behavior, and these patterns can be recognized, questioned, and changed, and are therefore logically not who we fundamentally are. With this understanding, their growth accelerates. They take things less personally and are less interested in defending and protecting their image, and more interested in becoming more aware and adaptive in a complex world. A leadership expert, Edwin Friedman, observed, "Leaders who are willing to make a lifetime commitment to their own continual self-regulated growth can make any leadership theory or technique look brilliant." Horizontal skills and knowledge versus vertical growth. In our work, we differentiate between horizontal development and vertical growth. Horizontal development is about acquiring knowledge and developing new skills to bring about a new competency. While improving horizontal competencies may require repeated practice, it typically requires no growth in self-awareness or self-regulation. Simple examples might be learning planning skills or mastering MS Word or Excel. In a leadership development context, it can be easy to confuse leadership development principles and training with vertical growth. For example, the leadership techniques and practices needed to enable others to act or to apply agile methodology are typically taught as a set of horizontal skills, learnable by any leader, regardless of his or her level of self-awareness and maturity. The mistake we often make is that when these skills are applied poorly or inappropriately, We assume the techniques and skills we were taught were inadequate. This is rarely the case. It's a vertical growth challenge. Vertical growth involves both downward seeing and upward growth. We see downward, vertically, into our unconscious patterns of thought and behavior, and learn to deal with them with awareness, patience, and compassion. The more we do this, the more we increase our ability to grow upward in the direction of our values, aspirations, and ideals. Through vertical growth, we are able to train our mind to engage less in the reactive and programmed algorithms of our mind and body, and more in a deliberate and flexible set of behaviors based on our aspirations and values. In short, as illustrated in Figure 1.1, with vertical growth, we explore downward in ourselves to resolve our deep-seated assumptions, fears, and patterns in order to grow upward into our best selves. It's an inside-out job rather than an outside-in job. This, combined with basic behavioral science, prompts, rituals, and the like, and the necessary horizontal skills, delivers on the promise of amazing leadership and healthy cultures. We can briefly summarize the two forms of development as follows. Horizontal development means developing the skills and gaining the knowledge I need to work in the organization to get my job done efficiently, effectively, and safely. Vertical development means developing the ability to change how I perceive and value my inner and outer world mindset, then building the self-regulating awareness to support the development of new behaviors in a sustainable way aligned with my core values. This book focuses on vertical growth and presents a detailed process for going about it, on both a personal and organizational level. In leadership development, personal behavior change or culture change, horizontal development is just not enough. Leaders may learn the specific skills of strategic planning, conflict management, productivity improvement, and empowerment on the assumption that understanding the what and how is enough for the skills to be applied and embedded. Organizations may publish new value statements, explain them really clearly, and educate people on their importance on the assumption that it will result in culture change. But it will not. Horizontal development is extremely important, even in the complex field of leadership development and culture change. But alone, it's a false promise. It's not enough, because horizontal skills and knowledge compete with fears, limiting beliefs, and other mental models that keep us locked in habitual patterns and reactive loops. Seeing and changing these loops is the function of vertical development. In leadership terms, this is when walking the talk becomes far more consistent. A term we like to use in our work is the self-examined mind. This is the stage of development in which a person consciously authors his or her values and daily behavior instead of being trapped in the unconscious reactivity of what Harvard development experts Robert Kegan and Lisa Leahy call image management. Image management refers to the time and energy we waste in organizations on blame, denial, deflection, defense, gossiping, politics, saving face, masking our weaknesses, and other fear-based strategies to make ourselves feel safe or look good. Kegan and Leahy maintain that image management is a second job for most people in typical organizations. One research study we performed involving more than 5,000 people from various global organizations indicated that image management may suck up about 40% of people's time and energy on average. This is a staggering waste of time and energy, costing billions of dollars. More critically, image management creates values breaches, wherein people fail to speak up or admit mistakes, judge or blame others, and avoid addressing inefficiencies, all to ensure their image is protected. This arrests growth, damages leadership credibility, shuts down innovation, and impacts mental health, while keeping relationships superficial. Margaret Dean, head of people and organization at Novartis Oncology, shared with me her view of vertical growth as about recognizing and dissolving her self-defeating patterns. She explained, "One of the key insights in my process was to start seeing the stories and patterns I have developed as a way of protecting myself. I've had to reflect and be deliberate about letting go of them in order to create the life I want. It's much easier just to ignore these patterns and keep living them. But when I'm willing to peel back the layers of the onion and ask myself if this is really what I want, I can see what's not serving me and holding me back. So growth for me is about letting go of old beliefs and patterns and replacing them with awareness and curiosity to enable the development of more thoughtful, mindful ways of behaving. This requires us to always push ourselves out of our comfort zone where we can learn something new. With vertical growth, we are no longer looking outward, but rather are turning inward. We're bringing a level of precise awareness to our inner thoughts, emotions, sensations, and behavioral patterns. We're questioning why we behave in certain ways, why we are emotionally triggered by certain things. Vertical growth requires a willingness to face tremendously difficult truths about our thoughts and behaviors, while cultivating an attitude of kindness and patience towards ourselves. The amazing payoff is an increased capacity to choose our behaviors with insight, wisdom, and compassion. As Paul Spittle, Chief Commercial Officer of General Medicines at the biopharmaceutical firm Sanofi, told me, "Vertical growth is having a better understanding of your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. And related to that, allowing yourself to accept some things that you wish weren't true about your behavior and thinking, then asking, what do I do about that? How do I use that?" We have an incredible capacity to deny the worst things about our behavior, but if we can't face these things, we can't work on them or develop further. Paul's colleague, Kevin Callanan, a senior vice president of Sanofi, added, "For me, vertical growth is being able to stop and look at situations and my emotions. The more I look, the more I can separate my ego or wants and desires from what is best for the team or organization as a whole. I have more clarity and I make better, more informed decisions. I also have more empathy towards others and inner peace." And that's not an easy thing to do, especially for someone like me who has a thirst for action and a thirst to respond. So there's always that inner conflict between my immediate desire to move quickly and get things done, and my desire to slow down and be more conscious and deliberate. Brian Gladstone, head of worldwide commercial and portfolio strategy at Novartis Oncology, put it even more simply. To me, vertical growth comes from being clear on my personal values, but more importantly, the real growth comes from feeding those values. Am I nourishing what's important to me? To use an analogy, horizontal development is like having a computer operating system such as Microsoft Windows and adding apps like MS Word, WhatsApp, and other useful programs to facilitate our work. But vertical growth is about changing the entire operating system to generate more power and manage greater complexity. That then enables a much smarter use of the apps and programs. Vertical growth within organizations. The head of culture for a multinational division once called us for strategic advice. I asked her what she had implemented so far. She had been busy with endless events and webinars on a huge range of relevant and interesting subjects. Her people were practically drowning in cool events and awesome guest speakers. "How effective has it been so far?" I asked. She was silent for a moment, before admitting with embarrassment that the culture and leadership behavior was as bad as ever. She was implementing what we call an information spray and pray approach to development, throwing masses of information at people, hoping at least some of it would stick and actually change behavior. But all the information and skill building in the world are not enough to deliver long-term significant sustainable cultural change. We need to go deeper. A common mistake organizations make that contributes to this wasted investment is believing that cultivating self-awareness and personal growth are a matter of developing new skills or gaining new knowledge. Unfortunately, this simplistic approach entirely misses the point. Focusing on horizontal skills and training without vertical growth is like planting a flower in poorly fertilized soil. Unable to take root or gain the necessary nourishment to grow, it cannot flourish and will inevitably just wither away. An organization can spend millions of dollars training its leaders in horizontal skills and knowledge, but it's a poor investment unless it's preceded and supported by vertical growth and use of behavioral science. Without a foundation of vertical growth, our ability to apply horizontal skills and knowledge wisely is limited, although, ironically, we typically remain in denial of these limitations. To change our behavior, we must first see it and explore it objectively in order to best understand where it comes from, as well as cultivate the ability to manage it in real time. One client we worked with was interested in developing accountability and a growth mindset in their organization. They introduced the concept of victim versus players, borrowed from another leadership development provider. They wanted players in their teams, people who did not make excuses or play victim, but were proactive and had a can-do attitude. Unfortunately, it quickly became apparent that applying this concept in their culture was backfiring. When someone challenged an idea or way of working, or challenged poor behavior in an attempt to hold people accountable, they were accused of being a victim. Many well-intentioned people within the organization were embodying a player mentality, but the lack of self-awareness and vertical growth in many of the leaders resulted in a distortion of the intention behind the principles. A player became someone who agreed to any request, worked unreasonable hours, and accepted poor behavior. This is why it is so dangerous to ignore vertical growth. All too often, wonderful horizontal knowledge and skills end up getting twisted into the very opposite of their intent. With vertical growth training, we transcend the unconscious emotional and reactive brain to connect with our higher-order brain functions that allow us to self-regulate as well as make more informed and creative decisions. Vertical growth enables us to more readily bypass the conditioned reactions that have kept us safe over the years, but now hold us back from our full potential and deepest happiness. Furthermore, personal vertical growth enables leaders to empower and develop their people. Suzanne Schaffert, president of Novartis Oncology, shared with me why vertical growth is important to her. When it comes to dealing with a crisis, what leaders are asked for is not specific skill sets. It goes much deeper than that. What we are asked to do is inspire people toward achieving common goals. We are asked to energize and comfort people and give them confidence. The biggest impact we can have as leaders is not what we personally do with our skills, but rather what we inspire our people to do through our character. And how can we become inspirational leaders if we are not grounded, balanced, and mindful? It's impossible. Vertical growth cuts through image management. So, Pat, how did it go with your boss Robin? I asked. Not great, Pat replied. What happened? Well, after we completed that anonymous survey on Robin's leadership, we were invited to a meeting to discuss the results. When we got into the meeting, the very first thing Robin said was, "Team, thanks for the feedback. There's good stuff in there, but I just want to say that you have all rated me poorly on empowerment, and I totally disagree with your ratings. I know I'm great at empowering you." The entire team and I just sat there and nodded in agreement. We were wrong. Robin was right. Robin left the meeting smiling. We left feeling disengaged once again. I remember promising myself I'd never be honest again. What's the point? But, pretty much every boss I've had has been the same. Sadly, defensiveness, denial, and even blame occur every day in organizations, families, and relationships. Instead of taking a self-aware, growth mindset approach to life's challenges, like Robin, we often defend our self-image to protect ourselves from emotional discomfort. We don't do this because we are dishonest or because we don't want to grow. Rather, we have been hijacked by our primitive brain and the old coping mechanisms that were designed to help us manage difficult feelings like overwhelm, fear, hurt, and insecurity. To add to this, our research indicates that less than 10% of us have been educated on how to regulate our emotions, handle challenging feedback, and cultivate self-awareness. Is it any wonder that we so often choose protection over growth, image management over vulnerability, and numbness over facing difficult feelings? This phenomenon negatively impacts mental well-being, careers, families, teams, organizations, even nations. It ensures we keep repeating behavior patterns that don't serve us or others well. This is the price tag of a lack of self-awareness and the associated absence of a vertical growth mindset. Given that up to 40% of an organization's time and energy may be wasted on image management, it's no wonder that engagement levels in organizations are so low. In the second half of 2021, for example, Gallup reported that employee engagement rates in the United States had dropped to a dismal 34%. The ratio of engaged to actively disengaged workers in the US is 2.1 to 1, down from 2.6 to 1 in 2020. As humans, we are hardwired for self-protection and survival, which includes the need to please and be accepted by our tribe. Managing one's image is a modern-day survival mechanism. We can spend a lifetime in this mode without consciously noticing it, including enjoying a brilliant career and accomplished life as seen through the lens of society. So why do we need self-awareness and vertical growth? Behind the gloss of image management, we can actually suffer tremendously. The vast majority of accomplished leaders secretly experience imposter syndrome. If we dig a little deeper, they will admit they need validation to deal with deep insecurities. McKinsey & Company coined the term the insecure overachiever to describe this global phenomenon. As a result, they struggle with being truly values-based. Andre Viljoen, CEO of Fiji Airways, calls this phenomenon the plastic hero. No amount of external success will ever make Pinocchio, our self-image, a real boy or girl. The fancy titles and the deference and privilege that come with them are not who we are. Secretly, we know this, and we dread the inevitable loss of this image. The greatest privilege of our careers has been earning the trust of exceptionally talented and successful people who have had the courage to admit that image is not satisfying, that one never reaches a golden moment when image management results in deep self-acceptance and true inner peace. We have worked with wonderful people who have grown beyond the need for protection and image approval and sought out a life of inner exploration, personal growth, and internal congruence to find a profound sense of joy, meaning, and resilience. This is the purpose of developing self-awareness and embracing vertical growth. We are blessed with an amazing mind-body system that has an astonishing capacity for lifelong learning, the development of noble, inspiring qualities, and the realization of profound inner congruence and well-being. Those who can unleash this capacity can make a profound impact on culture, performance, and well-being in organizations. This is why we are particularly passionate about focusing on leaders. The research shows that nothing impacts people's work experience and performance more than the behavior of those in leadership roles. Having self-aware leaders who consciously self-lead within an organization is how we create value-based, high-trust, innovative organizations that build people up and increase psychological safety well-being and performance in today's increasingly complex and uncertain world. Why self-awareness is critical. A self-aware person can view their thoughts, emotions, conditioned patterns and reactions objectively. Through the development of self-awareness, we become present, compassionate, honest, curious, committed, and transformational. The greater our self-awareness, the greater our capacity to align our behavior with our noblest intentions and values. Conversely, the less self-aware we are, the more we are subject to our unconscious thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions, as well as the conditioned patterns and behaviors that move us away from our best self with all of its potential. Nurturing and protecting an image involves a fundamental confusion in the mind. As a result of childhood conditioning, what people think of us comes to determine our self-worth, and slowly but surely we disconnect from our core and become lost in patterns that soothe that loss. This is why the journey into authenticity and self-awareness is both challenging and extraordinarily rewarding. It's our journey back home to ourselves. We come to see that image management is exhausting and sustains a perpetual sense of imposter syndrome. Leaders who embrace the self-awareness journey become a beacon of growth and psychological safety for those around them. Instead of denying their mistakes, they are honest with themselves and others. They are interested, even excited, by seeing behaviors in themselves that are not working, and they are courageous enough to admit it. Instead of justifying, ignoring, and denying actions that hold them back from deeper insight and wiser choices, they want to understand where, how, and why they're falling short on their values and aspirations. And by doing so, they give others the safety and permission to do the same. Becoming deliberately developmental. Cultivating our capacity for growth is a lifelong journey, not a short course. Leadership expert John C. Maxwell recounts, "The first year I engaged in intentional personal growth, I discovered that it was going to be a lifetime process. During that year, the question in my mind changed from, how long will this take, to how far can I go? But how do we intentionally grow, particularly as adults, when our beliefs and behaviors have become ingrained in us? What does it even mean to grow? And how does it work in groups and organizations?" Intentional vertical growth requires us to be deliberately developmental, meaning we apply conscious and deliberate practices that help us grow as human beings. When leaders become deliberately developmental, it becomes possible to do this growth work as an entire organization. Keegan and Leahy call this a deliberately developmental organization, DDO. In this book, you will first learn how to develop a self-aware, psychologically safe growth mindset in yourself. Part 1 focuses on understanding how our brain works to hijack our best efforts and how to train our brain to work for us rather than against us. We introduce the Mindful Leader Matrix, our formal tool for helping leaders and organizations become deliberately and consistently values-aligned, growth-based, and psychologically safe. Part 2 reviews the central role of developmental mindfulness in the self-awareness process. Here we will dig deep into vertical growth to gain a greater context for applying the Mindful Leader Matrix. Finally, in Part 3, we will examine how you can apply the process within your team and organization. You will learn how to hold yourself and others accountable in healthy ways that promote positive growth and psychological safety, rather than fostering distrust and resentment. You will learn a detailed process for building a deliberately developmental organization, DDO, which will lead to improved productivity and effectiveness. The 40% of your people's time that is currently wasted on image management can be redirected toward learning, innovation, and growth. In short, you will learn the core practices that support lifelong vertical growth, enabling you to lead consistently in a way that inspires and makes your world, and that of others, a better place. Far from being an expression of naive...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?